Hey guys, this is Jonathan from Woodland Gear of mywoodlandgear.com. Today we're going to talk about trying to get a fire started in the rain. So sit tight and get ready for our next woodland adventure. So the first thing you're going to want to do is find a nice dry spot to get your fire started. The last thing you want to do is try to start a fire in moist or damp conditions, because it's going to make it exponentially harder. There are about 6 good ones that are pretty reliable that I can think of offhand. The first option, and everyone's probably going to think of this one, is to make your own. You make a simple lean-to, get the fire started under there. The only problem with this one is that it takes a lot of time. It takes time and energy. The second is a rocky outcrop, just like this one. This one comes with its own drawbacks. Of course, sometimes the water does leak through the cracks in the rocks like this one, but that's not a big deal. You can work around those. The biggest problem is safety. If you start a large enough fire under here, the rocks will heat up, and from the cold air and from the water around you, they'll contract. And this repeated process of heating and contracting in the rocks will cause them to split. And trust me when I say the last thing you want is a 2-ton boulder falling on top of you while you're trying to make a fire. So you make a fire in here, it's got to stay relatively small, and you're probably going to want to make it closer towards the edge of the outcrop. The third one is obviously a cave. Everybody's seen the old classic cave, but how many people just come across a cave in the wild? Not many. The fourth, and this one's probably familiar to you too, is a fallen tree. If you find a large enough fallen tree, there's enough surface area to block the rain, and underneath of it there'll be a little sliver of dry land if it's close enough to the ground. All right, so the fifth one, and some people have heard of this one, some may have not. If you find a large enough tree, a large tree, at the base of the tree on one side, usually there is a dry spot on the ground. Not always, but usually. The wind will blow and hit the tree, but the tree will block from the backside. In the backside of the tree, there will be dry ground on the bottom, sometimes. And the last way is similar to the tree. If you find the face of a cliff that is vertical, if it's in the backside of the wind and the rain's hitting it like this, there will be a dry spot at the bottom from where the rain's not hitting. It'll go like this. I don't know if you can see that, but it'll be like that, and there'll be a dry spot right there. But those are 6 pretty reliable ways that you can find a place to start a fire. We're still going to continue on to our second step, which is finding fuel and tinder. Another important step, another important process. You'll find that a lot of the places that you find your dry fuel and tinder is almost exactly the same as where you start your fires. So here I have another deciduous tree where the ridges in the bark are really deep. You can see where I've already started to harvest some off of here, but these ones are a little bit tighter. You can't just pull them off with your finger. So let me show you what you do with that. So what you want to do is you want to get either an axe or a knife with a good thick spine that's not going to break, and stick it in between 2 ridges, and you just pry it up. One of the 2 is going to give away, and you get a nice good strip of fuel. So you do that a couple times. Another thing you're going to want is somewhere to put your fuel and tinder, and I recommend a zip top freezer bag. Okay, so we got our Ziploc baggie or whatever you have full of bark strips, just something to keep them out of the water. You can use an old t-shirt, bag, whatever. But let's say you can't find any bark strips or any other tinder, and you don't have a saw or an axe. There's still ways to get the tinder you need. You just gotta know where to look. Sometimes you find a fallen tree, they get old, and punky like this, just crumbles. And that can be a good thing. It's bad that they act like a sponge, absorb all the moisture, but what we're more concerned about is the underside. And you see big strips like this. And you just get some nice dry fuel. The next source of fuel or tinder we're going to talk about is an old woodsman favorite, and that's standing deadwood. Just about every forest you go into, you can find standing deadwood. The only problem with that is you're going to either need an axe or a nice thick bush knife to process this down into usable pieces. Most of the bark's usually going to be not very useful, but you get in there and that's good, solid, dry wood. So we're going to gather up our materials and we're going to head back to our little hangout and we're going to get this fire started. Show you what to do next. Okay, so here we are at our little hideout. We'll just call it our base camp. Here we are at base camp. And we'll give you the benefit of the doubt. Say you have a fire striker, or at the very least, a Bic or a lighter that throws a spark but doesn't light. So if you wear cotton socks, what you want to do is you want to find the dry spot. My feet are still pretty soaked from walking through the rain all day, but find a dry spot in your sock and you just pinch and pull. You pinch and pull and pull and pinch all the little strands and fuzzies off of your socks. And you do this for several minutes. And what you get is something that may look like fluff. Alright, so here's the final product. Got some cotton fluff from my socks and from my coat. Any cotton source will work as long as it's old, worn in, that's the best kind, and dry. You just grab the little tufts that form and pull them off, and this is the end result. We're gonna fluff this up just a little bit, give it a little bit more surface area to catch a spark, see what happens. When everything's damp like this, you may have to baby your fire just a little bit. The twigs that I started with weren't really dry. They were still pretty damp. But luckily we weren't able to, to lose the spark, because you really only get one shot at it. But now that we got those good embers, we're good to go. Alright, so at this point, we got our spark taken, we got our fire going, we got a good bed of coals going. Our fire may not look like much, but we don't want to keep it very large because we don't have a lot of fuel. We almost lost it in the beginning there due to, that was my mistake, of using some slightly damp twigs. The outsides were dry, but the insides were still damp. They were soaking it up through the ends like a sponge, and I didn't take the time to notice. But we were able to pull it back together with some punky wood that I pulled off the bottom of that fallen log. So this is what our fire looks like right now. May not look like much. I mean, it's about the size of my hand. But you know, that's all we really need at this point. Alright guys, so in conclusion, there are 3 main steps that you want to remember when getting your fire started in the rain or in less than ideal conditions. The first, and hands down most important step, is location. You want a nice, dry, safe location to give your fire the best chance of getting started. Second is dry fuel and tinder. You can usually find this in the places where you're about to start your fire anyway. It's usually pretty convenient, but if not, I showed you a few tips and tricks on where else you might be able to look to find some more. The third and usually forgotten step is patience. If you're trying to start a fire in less than ideal environments, you're going to have some patience. You saw where I almost lost my fire. I had to baby it, I had to hold its hand until it was able to sustain itself. Blow on it, give it some oxygen, do whatever you got to do to keep that fire going until it's able to sustain itself fully. If you enjoyed this video, make sure you give us a like, comment down below, or subscribe to our YouTube channel where you can find more bushcraft and survival videos like this one or other gear reviews. Stick around for our next video where we're going to use the fire we just made to make a nice, filling, hearty woodland breakfast. Thanks for watching, and remember, adventure is waiting.